What's going on, guys? Welcome into today's Wealth Building Wednesday.
What a day.
It's November 16th when we're recording this. I'm your host, Matty A., along with my co-host, my brother, Mr. Breed.
What's up, guys?
If you guys are new to the show, if you're new to the channel, we talk all things wealth building to help you on your march to that millionaire status and beyond.
Yes,
all
sir.
things money. Wow, what a time to be talking about everything. I feel like everything right now impacts your money.
It really does, from politics to the market and so on.
We got stimulus. We've got the election still.
Yeah,
still.
Get away.
We've got the vaccines.
Vaccines.
We've got a lot of these things ultimately that are tying into the stock market. They're tying into real estate. We got some updates and news for you guys today, so be sure to stay tuned until the very end.
Hit that subscribe button. What are you looking at it for? Just click it.
Where's it at? Let me get it up in there.
Click it.
Subscribe.
Oops. Click it.
So if you guys are listening to this, we are on all podcasting platforms. All we ask is if you enjoy these news updates and kind of analyses.
Us.
Be sure to subscribe. All we ask that you smash that like button, share this with a friend, a family member, somebody else that you know wants to stay up to date, is leaning in to make sure they're equipped with all the right tools and resources to navigate their financial journey, as well as leave a review. That's all we ask. If you enjoy the content that we share here, that is our repayment, I guess you could say. Of just
our repayment?
Yeah.
Man, you said that weird. That's like the Taco Bell.
Taco Bell. Yo quiero Taco Bell. So be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and don't forget to share this with anybody that you think can get some value from it. Know that we have all kinds of cool free resources for all of our Millionaire Mindcast family.
Free.
Real estate investing course.
Tons.
Text the word INVEST to 844-447-1555. Look at that. You got it down, bro. For those that want to take advantage of a free financial X-ray on your investment portfolio, you want to have a strategy session call with Ryan and his team, they do that. You can text the word X-ray to that same phone number, as well as if you are an accredited investor and you want to get on my syndication deals list and know what...
Can you explain what accredited means? Because sometimes we say that and you guys just hear investor, and let's just go ahead and peel back.
Yeah, I mean, accredited
for 5 seconds.
For an individual is $250,000 a year in annual income, and
if you're single or if you're married,
$300,000. And if you are somebody who doesn't make that amount of money per year, but let's say you have $1 million in net worth, and that's excluding your primary residence.
Yes, it is.
So that is ultimately how the SEC will classify an accredited and or non-accredited investor. So anybody that wants to get on my deals list and our syndication opportunities, passive investment opportunities, just text the word deals to 844-447-1555. All right, we got that out of the way. A lot of news this last week in terms of more lockdowns potentially, the election, COVID. So let's start in terms of the election and everything that's going on. This last weekend, the MAGA Million March in D.C. between Trump supporters. There was some clashes with Antifa and BLM, and some violence broke out. And Trump's still fighting hard right now to try and ultimately prove that there was election meddling, voter fraud. Dominion, which was the big software used in a lot of the states that there were quote unquote glitches in. Trump is really leaning in hard on this one. There were Chinese parts in the machine. He's anything to do with China. Means that there's some kind of coercion.
Good old Trump.
But this was used in 28 states, and all of the battleground states that ultimately are in contention right now use this software. The left in the media is ultimately claiming that there was no evidence, no proof. What I find a little bit interesting is, and again, I hope that they don't find election meddling and voter fraud, because that ultimately is a much bigger issue than who our president is going to be. That means there's somebody at the top selecting our presidents for us, not us electing our presidents for ourselves. And that would undermine democracy. That would completely demolish all trust and integrity in our voting system and processes. And with the way things are nowadays, the fact that we don't we're so damn intelligent and advanced when it comes to technology. We have the ability to do voting on a blockchain, have it be decentralized, be transparent.
Yep.
And the fact that we don't have that, I think, highlights an issue. The fact that we have, Betty and Ted, from around the corner that are most likely partisan in some kind of basement counting votes. Yeah. There's something wrong with that system. And then if you go to even further measures and say, if this is a transparent process, why not let people watch you count votes then? Like, what is the issue with that? If there's nothing wrong with it, and everybody is being honest, and all Americans deserve to know the truth as to believing that who was selected is the real president. Yep. Why hide and put up all of these roadblocks?
Yeah, I mean, even, if this was 2008 or, whoever is being elected, that's just odd, when unreasonable things are going on, they normally require unreasonable explanations.
Yes.
And so, that doesn't make sense.
There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't.
Yeah. I don't get how the thing that doesn't make sense to me is how do dead people vote? I know that it happens in every election, but that to me is so. You can't even get a credit card with a dead person. So how does Visa know that person's dead and a voting system doesn't? It's weird.
It is weird. So as we know, Trump is going to continue to fight this. Many of the lawsuits are already getting thrown out in court, so they're really making it hard for him to get any traction.
I haven't seen any filed by his attorney, though.
Well, he's had multiple attorney groups quit over the last week.
Correct. And I think some of the lawsuits that are getting filed,
Pennsylvania, Georgia, a handful of the states already have been thrown out.
But those were filed by their state, not by his attorney. So that's what I think. I'm waiting to see this week what his attorney files. That's what I want to see.
And ultimately,
I don't know. That'll tell me if it's good, if it has any substance or not. Because all the other stuff is just jibber jabber. And this could be a lot of jibber jabber because it's a last attempt to.
Who knows?
Yeah, but that's what I want to see is her lawsuit because she's the real deal.
Powell?
No, not Powell. Is that her name?
Powell. She is.
Is it her? Oh yeah.
She is a freaking pit bull.
And
she says the evidence is coming in through a fire hose right now. Now, whether or not that's true and that's just their narrative they're painting, who knows?
She just is not somebody that would die on this hill. That's what I have ascertained from my research of her.
All I know is if you want someone fighting in your corner, she seems nasty.
She terrifying.
She does not look nice.
And she's got the scary Southern woman.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. But here, just for you guys that are wondering, hey, how the hell would Trump even find a way to stay in office, right? That seems like a massive amount of votes that ultimately he would need to overturn. And now, mind you, we're getting close to Joe Biden getting almost 80 million votes. Trump is, in that 74 to 75 million range. We're talking a lot of votes here, right? Majority vote does not matter. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about what does Trump really need to reverse the result of the election outright, Trump would have to overcome a roughly 60,000 vote deficit in Pennsylvania.
It's not that much.
An 11,400 vote margin in Arizona, a 14,100 vote margin in Georgia, and this is according to tallies by the Associated Press. That feat is without precedent in American history, never been done, never seen that type of margin be overturned. So they're basically saying,
without court ruling, right? There would have to be a court ruling.
Well, even of the court rulings,
there were hundreds of votes, not thousands.
Correct. So the deficit margin was very small compared to what this would ultimately end up being. He's also attempting to overcome deficits of about 36,866 in Nevada and 20,500 in Wisconsin and 146,000 in Michigan.
That's the Michigan one.
So again, there's a lot of ground that he's going to have to cover. And my concern is at this stage of the game, I hope Biden becomes our president because I hope we don't find that there was fraud at that level. That would be even more destructive, in my opinion. And if Trump ends up staying in there.
What if they found fraud, though, and ultimately, this is a fair juxtaposition, I think. What if it could be proven that the Biden team was just as naive to some of the fraud going on to get him into the White House, and so
they totally could be, right?
Yeah,
there could be. That's what I'm saying.
So
a higher power.
And then what if they were both like, hey, what if Joe Biden's team said, hey, then you know what, the current president needs to be incumbent, and this is why, and this is the issue that's going on. What if that'll, I see the flip side of that. If it was found out, what if, and I know this is a stretch, but what if it could bring, it's so bad, it could bring, because both sides can ultimately agree they want their votes counted.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that could
be something that's positive that creates a break.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows, right? And how would you find out who actually did it and who's the real enemy? And
exactly.
Right? It's wild. Interesting this week. We've seen a lot of different countries and leaders kind of hold off on congratulating Biden this week. China congratulated Biden for his victory on Friday. Mm-hmm. So that's something we've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, China is, of course, going to be excited that Biden is in there because of their relationship.
Yep.
Swinging over to the vaccine news.
Great news.
And just COVID in general. Some bad news and some good news. Bad news being, according to some of the different states' health leaders and the governors themselves are trying to get people to cancel their Thanksgiving, to have them in very small groups.
I'm having Thanksgiving at my house. Fuck you, Newsom. Hella people are coming over.
So there's going to be it's going to be an interesting holiday for a lot of people. But with that being said, we had our largest case count Thursday, then back-to-back on Friday. It sounds like it was on Saturday as well. I didn't look at those updated numbers yet.
I think that a lot of those, though, I'm sticking my head. That's not just COVID.
It can't be. I mean, if flu
numbers
cases
are
down
down
90%.
Exactly. One of my buddies.
And I hear people arguing, oh, well, people wearing their masks. They're more sanitary. They're more hygienic. 90% swing down for the flu, but if they're saying masks and sanitization works on COVID, then why are we seeing massive spikes in COVID, but massive drops in the flu rate?
All the numbers are coming from blue states that it is, again, it's a political ball to keep in their court so they can keep them, that is what's happening, Now that the election is aside, I'm just letting you know that's ultimately what it's for. We have counties in our state that are just simply saying they're not going to comply with the governor anymore because it's ridiculous.
It's great. You want to know how hypocritical Gavin Newsom is?
Oh, yeah, tell him.
And you would think
that
he is potentially related to another politician that's pulled some BS
Nancy
like
Pelosi.
This. On November 6th, Newsom and his wife attended the 50th birthday party of their friend and political advisor, Jason Kinney. The party held at a ritzy Napa Valley restaurant called the French Laundry.
It's baller.
It's as baller as it gets here in California.
It's unreal expensive.
Consisted of 12 members in close quarters from several different households. So he wants you to cancel your Thanksgiving, not see your family, not spend time with anybody that you want to.
You're not an elitist.
But don't worry, because he's going to go out and do the complete opposite. Do as I say, not as I do. Same thing with Nancy Pelosi. Same thing, Chris Cuomo earlier this month. CNN journalist Chris Cuomo was found, who's urged viewers time and time again to wear their masks, was caught getting his hair cut in New York City without a mask. So it's just funny, right? It's not even funny. It's actually
hypocritical.
It pisses me off, that they think they're above what they're telling everybody else to do.
I just think that it's the thing that bothers me the most is that they and there's media representatives on both sides of the street doing this. Mm-hmm. But don't play holy. That's so just it's distasteful because everybody has faults. So don't play like you're this perfect, holy person that does no wrong, that you're out and you only do what's right. Chris Cuomo, what's the other lady on MSNBC? Yeah. Tucker Carlson does it too on Fox. There's just a lot of that kind of going on. And I think that, more toes on the ground is going to get you a wider base and people are going to finally listen. Because, I'm wrong. Matt has been wrong. we're still here today to tell you about it. It's okay to be wrong.
Well, and to admit it, right?
Yeah,
and just,
exactly.
So, yeah.
I was wrong about the election.
You was wrong.
I was wrong.
And it happens, right? But
Yeah.
that's the beauty of going, if you're going to put something out there, just reserve the right that you're probably going to be wrong at certain points in time and admit it and
it feels
move
good
on,
to admit it,
right? And just move on. Don't act like
I'm not going to break a window or anything.
So to shift over in terms of
Is that too early for that?
the positive side of things is a lot of people with COVID cases are extremely worried about more lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about vaccine news here in just a second because there's some really positive stuff in terms of that. I want to get your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Before we move on, I'm curious, going back to, the lockdown. Do you guys think we're going to see a national lockdown and a national mask mandate or not? Share your thoughts with us, 844-447-1555. So Biden's at least COVID-19 advisory board. Mm-hmm. Who are they? There's a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds on this COVID task force. But ultimately, they are saying that the consensus is we do not need the draconian lockdowns, shutdowns that we saw and had in the spring.
Yep.
That we learned enough over the last several months to be much more targeted about how we tighten up some of our measures. Now, for those of you who want to know a little bit more about what is the Biden pandemic plan, real quick, 5 points here. They are going to push for a national mask mandate. He said, I'm going to go to every governor and urge them to mandate mask wearing in their states. And if they refuse, I'll go to the mayors and the county executives and get local mask requirements in place nationwide. So they are going to push for this mask mandate. Number 2, they're going to work on paid sick leave and caregiving leave, in addition to his pledge to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour from $7.25 an hour. Biden has made the pandemic, has highlighted the lack of labor protections for millions of workers, such as paid sick leave and caregiving leave. I think that's kind of a whole nother...
Point number 2 is not possible. It'll bankrupt states.
Businesses will know. And if you already are talking about lockdowns...
Barely can happen. Just so you know, when they raised to 15 in California, it was barely doable, and businesses just got used to it right before the pandemic.
Well, even then, if you think about now being
post-pandemic
shut down and or at minimum operating capacity with more operating expenses, your revenue is minimized, your expenses are maximized or at least enhanced,
your cogs
and now you're going to raise the cost of labor to that. We're talking about these are some of the concerns I have with lockdowns, and we'll save this for another conversation, I think. But some of those concerns are, if we force more of these businesses and or people essentially out of the opportunity to take care of themselves, their livelihood, and that trickle effect, now we're just basically middle class goes away. The small fraction of the wealthy get wealthier. The majority of people get much poorer and ultimately are forced onto social programs, are forced into, opening up their hands to the government and saying, please help me. I don't know what else I can do. Now, this is where things start to spiral towards socialism. But we'll save that for another conversation. Number 3 is CDC tracker for coronavirus patients. Biden wants more transparency. He said he will instruct the CDC to establish real-time dashboards tracking hospital admissions related to COVID-19, especially for ICUs and emergency departments. So they want more tracking. Protecting and restoring Obamacare. And then number 5 is free COVID-19 tests for all, and they want rapid testing. They say we can't have more strategic and targeted measures in plans if we're waiting for 8 days for, my grandparents just had my uncle tested positive for it. He was around my grandparents. It took him almost 9 days to get the test results back. Like, that ain't saving nobody's life.
No.
That ain't helping anybody out. So a lot of people have argued this doesn't really differ a whole lot from Trump's task force. There were some news that came out this week that Trump has not attended a COVID-19 task force meeting in over 5 months, basically showing that he don't care a whole lot about that. Ultimately, I think it's something that the reality of the situation is we're dealing with it. We got to deal with it. We got to find some path and plan to getting back towards normalcy. Fauci said we don't expect normalcy to return anytime until 2022 and potentially beyond that. But we got positive news this last week in terms of the vaccine, and the market responded to that. So BioNTech and Pfizer shares as of this morning fell down after Moderna said its COVID-19 vaccine candidate can be stored at standard refrigerator temps for 30 days, while others basically say you need to have like a scientific lab.
Yeah, did you see the picture?
Dry ice, and
did you see the picture of how they had it stored?
Ultra low temperatures.
They were pulling like
it was like Jurassic Park or something.
It was like like the scene where they pull out the like embryos and it's like it's like it's all smoking off the side. Yeah, no, that's a little bit much, guys. We got to be able to freaking
the average person needs to be able to.
Yeah, we don't keep liquid nitrogen just in the garage.
So Moderna had a big surge in their share price today after reporting 94.5% efficacy in phase 3 trials. Here's the thing that, and we don't need to get on this too, but what does 94.5% actually entail? Right? Like, does it mean that it
means there was an odd number of people that tested? That's all I can tell you. Is an odd number of people that tested. I know that to be a fact. I don't know anything beyond that.
But the market responded positively to vaccine news. Yeah. We saw a lot of tech stock get essentially, I don't want to say dumped, but
that's what happened. We dumped it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for the past few months, I said that there was going to be a rotation to value.
You did.
Yeah, and it's been slowly happening, and it's not sexy because a lot of people say that, and it's almost like saying go buy government bonds.
Yeah.
It's just, ugh. But the value stocks are going to be the healthcare companies, the companies that benefit the most from the vaccine news. So you want to be where the momentum is going to be in the market. And if tech stocks have already had this huge rally, they're going to have less of a bullish momentum to ride up
Where's more upside if we're going back towards some type of normalcy with the vaccine?
Correct. So we are like getting a lot of exposure to not large cap value as much, although we are, but mid cap and small cap value, because ultimately if you go to the value space, the biggest laggard is going to be the smallest companies because they're going to have the least buffers put in place to handle, kind of this kind of stuff. Now, value companies simply just means they have a really sexy balance sheet.
Yep.
They have a lot of cash on hand. They make good money. They're not a growth company, but they reinvest a lot of their money into the company and they pay it out to their shareholders. So they're normally small but established. Everybody's heard of, give me a small, what's the coffee company? Dutch Brothers. Dutch Brothers in California, for example, they are a small company, but they're well established. They're pretty much at their growth peak. They're going to probably continue to be busy. That's a small company. So if that company was a value company, that's the size of company you'd be thinking to invest in.
Got it.
So those are the areas that we have invested our clients' money. We still have some hedges put in because when the market goes up again this fast, it can be bad. It's a weird thing to say, but sometimes if the market goes up that fast, it can indicate a melt up, and we don't want to be a part of that where you just go way up to then drop much harder. So that's a big deal that we're trying to avoid. So we still do have some hedges, but we've been actively trading. This is probably the most trading that we've ever done over the past 30 days ever.
In the history of the company.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're blacking out to trade almost every other week. So it's a lot of trading. A lot of my clients are calling me saying, what are we doing? I see a lot of trades going on. It's just because we have to consistently move the money. We have to constantly move it because it's the temperature is just changing so drastically in the space that we're in.
I read an article on that this last week of, big hedge funds and just Wall Street in general going, this year has been so insane.
Yeah.
And you have to be so engaged. Not that they aren't always like that, but there's just so many unknowns that it's almost like you just have to be willing to scrap everything and redeploy and/or.
Which we are.
Yep.
And it sucks sometimes because, we did a trade. Like a couple weeks ago, we had the positions for 3 days and then we sold them all off and traded again. And that's very active because we're considered
when you're talking
long.
about the size of investment that you guys are moving around.
Yeah, and our investors are long. So that's very active for long investors, which is a good thing. But also it indicates the market's still in a very rocky area.
Yeah. In terms of, some of the hedges, we've heard people like Robert Kiyosaki talk about Bitcoin, which has had a pretty strong run this year due to the volatility of the dollar. We've seen gold, we've seen silver have some pretty strong runs throughout 2020. Overall, for the person that's gone, Kiyosaki's speaking some truth here, I should go put some of my money as a hedge into Bitcoin or silver or gold. What do you say to those people?
Well, I mean, I would, first off, we've had gold, I would say, the majority of the year in the majority of our portfolios. Gold's been on a bull run. We've sold it off once or twice. We've repurchased and got back in. We currently still hold gold. I don't think that that's an issue to hold a little bit of gold in your portfolio at sometimes. There's just other times where it makes complete sense to not have any gold in your portfolio. I don't think that, I think the argument that I don't agree on with Robert is, and I'm in a better mood today, I guess. But I just
you're not gonna go in on him too hard.
No, it's just you don't. How do I say this in the way that I want to say it? You don't throw all your ducks or chips into one basket, and a lot of the stuff that he talks about is just very fringe. So the Bitcoin thing that I don't agree on is that Bitcoin is going to overtake the dollar, because I just asked a very simple question to everybody: what's Bitcoin worth? And I'm like, oh, it's worth $16,000. And then pause, say that again. It's worth $16,000. It derives its value off of a currency that it's trying to replace. So it's a derivative asset in my book. A derivative derives its value off of something else. So it derives its value based on the dollar. It doesn't matter what the dollar does. If the dollar value goes down, its price goes up, but it's still worth dollars. So ultimately, when you go exchange it, you're going to be exchanging it for $1. More dollars if the dollar's value goes down. So that's good for Bitcoin. But I think the argument needs to be put to the rest that it's going to replace the dollar, because I would just promise everybody out there, I'm not a no coiner. I don't hate cryptocurrency. I'm just sober to the fact it'll never replace the dollar. No matter how devalued the dollar goes, they will make a way for it to happen.
What is the most catastrophic thing that could and would need to happen for that to even be a potential?
I don't know. I can't even lay it out there, but if we got to the point where there would be no, U.S. dollar,
we're pretty much effed.
I feel like there'd be there'd be like wars going on. There'd be no systems to use Bitcoin. So just, again, it's almost like when you look at a lot of the protesters, the people that are calling for violence, and they're a bunch of video gamers and people that have never seen real violence. It's almost like people saying, oh yeah, the world is going to go to cryptocurrency. They're completely uneducated, in my book, idiots, and just don't have any basis for that besides it's they feel good to yell it and say it. I mean, that's all it is. Because ultimately, guys, again, cryptocurrency is going to be, in my opinion, around to move other currencies in a way that we just can't do through traditional banking systems, and that's where it has its value. Ripple, in my opinion, is my favorite to do that. Not Bitcoin, not Ethereum. I like Ripple because they're not trying to fight the banking system. Rather, they're trying to work with it and find their niche within it. And that's going to ultimately, I think, jive a lot better with the large financial institutions. Time will tell.
Where do you see the rest of the year in terms of the stock market opportunity?
Yeah.
And or risk that should be on people's radar?
If y'all would have just listened to me back in early this year, you'd have made a ton of money. I mean, most of my clients that invested with me earlier this year are 40+% returns. It's a good time. It was a good time to get into the market if you were going to be long. The market doesn't go down that much and then just revert back down to that. There could have been some pullback, and there was, but it was, again, like I said, never to the level that it was going to be back on March 23rd. We foresee a strong ending to this year's market. We still have to have our hedges in place because our clients, again, ask us to invest, but also have hedges if and should there be downturns in the market. And I think rolling into 2021, are we going to have as good of a year as 19? or even returns that we had like in 2020 from the bottom up? Probably not, but we should have a fairly healthy market. And as things start to get kind of put back in place, I think this is going to be like when Obama kind of walked into the Rose Garden in 2009 and said, hey, this is a good time to invest, and the market kind of started to get healthier and healthier. This could be that time. The vaccine news ultimately put aside any 3 to 4 month dip that we were seeing, because now we have something in the market, a catalyst to keep it up. If we didn't have that catalyst, people were really worried that, hey, we have a Democrat that got elected. That's not good for corporate taxes. The shutdown, they're starting to ease off on some of the things that are making big traders and hedge funds worried. And so I think that's positive for us going forward. So I'm again, feeling better than I was last week, and even better than I was the week before.
Nice.
That the market still is starting to look pretty good. Well, so it's not as bad as people thought it was going to be, but again, things are changing so much. I could be telling you something completely different next week.
Well, that means you guys got to tune in next week as we wrap up to give you guys a little bit of update in terms of how this ties into real estate. I track obviously forbearance news for you guys. We're still seeing millions of mortgages in forbearance. Those continue to trend downwards, but we've actually seen a little bit of a plateau this last week. So that's something to keep an eye on, because as we head into potentially more lockdowns, we head into more businesses being shut down, and we haven't really done too many updates on unemployment recently. But unemployment claims
pretty flat.
have been kind of,
they're contracting.
They've
They're
been
just
steady.
Kind of doing this.
I think as we look at what the Biden administration, one of their actual individuals on the task force said, the winter from hell is coming. If we see massive spikes in COVID, we see more states and or counties, cities around the country really tighten up and shut down. We see people start to hoard some of their cash due to the unknowns, or that consumer mentality is curtailed in certain aspects. Those could be things that ultimately have trickle effects into other aspects of our economy. And so I think in terms of people being able to pay their mortgages, we have certain cliffs coming up in terms of evictions, in terms of forbearance. There's a lot of other things that ultimately could impact the real estate market as a whole. But right now, new research, just to give you guys kind of a fun statistic, there's something in this data that I think people need to be aware of. And it's going to come back to this word affordability. We're seeing massive spikes in home values all across the country, right? And it feels like the market is really strong. And that ultimately, yes, is driven by supply and demand. The Fed has actually talked about, they threw a statement out last week that they could explore rates rising, but it doesn't look like anything on the near horizon.
Correct.
At the end of the day, back in 2007, or it was actually post 2008, they talked about not raising rates, right? And people, they're not going to raise rates until they rose rates, right? So you do have to be aware of the fact that the Fed can do whatever they want, whenever they want.
It's called legislative risk.
So with that being said, to give you guys an idea on where things are at in terms of national home research, new research finds that single-family home prices jumped 12% last quarter from the last previous year. The median cost of a single-family home jumped 12% in the third quarter to $313,500, making the biggest year-over-year increase since 2013. This is according to data from the National Association of Realtors, which was first reported by Bloomberg. Prices increased in all 181 metropolitan areas that the National Association of Realtors tracks. So everything metropolitan went up. Now, what his name is, I think, Lawrence Yun. He's the chief economist for National Association of Realtors. He said favorable mortgage rates will continue to bring fresh buyers to the market. However, the affordability situation will not improve even with low interest rates, because housing prices are increasing much too fast. The most expensive metro areas to buy homes are primarily on the West Coast. A lot of those are obviously in our neck of the woods, but we're also
San
seeing some of
Jose.
that on. Yep, we got San Jose, San
Silicon
Francisco,
Valley.
Anaheim. So those are some of the things to keep an eye on in the market, in the sense of, if we're not seeing the increase of wages go up, and we are not seeing the cost of living stay stable or go down.
Supply has something to do with that too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think we should be paying attention to, because at the end of the day, I personally think we're still in for one of the largest real estate wealth transfers of all time. And we're not even talking about commercial product. This is just in single family.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot of opportunity across the board. And I think 2021, as Biden gets in there and starts to really give clarity on what some of his policies actually are going to be, and what shots he's going to be taking at real estate, and how taxes tie into this, and what potential tax advantages may be going away altogether, then you're going to start to see people, and I'll give you an example, people are going to respond. In California, we had something called Prop 15. And Prop 15, it's either Prop 15 or Prop 19, I think it's 19, that ultimately it resets commercial values in terms of what they get taxed on. So they don't get to carry forward that basis anymore.
Just like on SFRs when you buy new, right?
So that immediately, right, will drastically impact, if that law gets passed, values of commercial real estate. And then you might see people go, oh crap, I got to get rid of my commercial real estate. This is writing on the wall long term that I ultimately need to get out, right? And now we may see supply increase. There's also things like that, Prop 21 in California, that is tied to people inheriting single family properties, and they don't get to carry that basis over to the family member. It resets. Well, right, if that were to actually be voted into place, now all of a sudden you might see people go, shoot, I don't want to pay all these taxes. What my mom was paying, 30 years ago and was grandfathered in now gets reset, and it just doesn't financially pencil anymore. So I'm going to get rid of this property, right? There's all of these little laws and things that potentially will change and are going to change under the Biden administration that you got to be aware of. You got to pay attention to. And then again, no matter if it's Trump or if it's Biden or it's the next president in 4 years or it's the president 4 years after that, the rules of the game are always going to change.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to adapt and pivot based on what rules are now in place and what goals you're looking to accomplish. And that's why we do this show for you guys. We bring these topics and conversation to them to give our opinions, right? Doesn't mean we're right, doesn't mean we're wrong. It's just to bring more narrative and spotlight the areas we know are going to impact you on your wealth building journey. So for anybody that wants to really have somebody at a high level work with them, discuss with them their investment goals, their portfolio, what fees you're getting charged, what fees you should or shouldn't be getting charged, what life insurance you should have, how you want to invest your money moving forward. That's why we got my brother, Mr. Breedwell, here. And if you guys want to take advantage of that, all you got to do is text the word XRAY to 844-447-1555 to take advantage of that. Jump on a call with him and his team. Vice versa, if you guys want to jump on a call with me, you guys can always text the word mentor to 844-447-1555. But that is why we bring conversation to these topics, knowing that things can change on a dime, right? Like the fact that you guys have had to stay engaged as, intently and close as you have with everything going on. Now's the year that you want to lean in. And I'll leave it with this. Whether you love or hate Donald Trump, the one thing that I think everybody owes Donald Trump a big thank you to is the fact that there are more woke, quote unquote, Americans in the United States than any time in history. And that's because of him. Whether you love him and you want to fight for him and you want to fight for, the country that you think he's going to present, or on the alternative, if you hate him and you want to, be part of Biden and or just the future change, right? It's one of those things where there are more people engaged, more people listening, more people watching than ever before. And I think that's a great thing.
It's a wonderful thing.
That's a beautiful thing, right? And so now it's the time for you to really strap in, get ready for what is going to be potentially a bumpy ride or a transition, and just know that whatever gets thrown at you, based on the goals that you want to achieve, you got to bet on yourself, you got to surround yourself with the right team, and you got to take daily consistent action towards those goals. And whatever feedback you get, right, you pivot, you adapt, but right now is the time to make sure that you are engaged. So with that being said, we appreciate you guys. If you enjoyed this show, all we ask is that you share with a friend, a family member, anybody that you think can get value from it. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. Don't forget to take advantage of all of our information, freebies, tools, resources, calls down in the show description below. If you're listening to this, don't forget to text us. 844-447-1555. And with that being said, we will see you guys next week. Happy investing.
Yes.
Cheers, my friends.
Cheers, guys.